Messaging wise, you have to just stand out. So you can't have a subject line that's like, I don't know, efficiency or like, use AI to scale. Like every subject line looks the same like that. So I think you have to get really creative, sometimes goofy, sometimes silly, as the phone and email and all these other channels like get harder and harder to get in hold of people. The only way you're going to be able to open up opportunities is through people that you know, through your network. So I'm always trying to anchor people on, you've already been through hell, man. You're still here. Is it really that hard to go prospect? Is it really that hard to close deals? Is it really that hard to find a new job? Is it really that hard to, succeed in this particular role? And the answer, hopefully, that people land on is no. And when you land at that answer, it's very liberating. It's very freeing. You don't operate from a place of fear anymore. You operate from a place of like, fuck it, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Scott, thanks so much for being here. It's really an honor to have you on the podcast for the second time. And we were talking the other day, and you told me something that really blew my mind. You said, Chris, I get concerned when I make under $100,000 a month in income. And I'm like, Scott gets concerned. And on the flip side, someone like me or most of the audience would be crying tears of joy if their income was just under $100,000 a month. So I want to start out this conversation understanding the mindset, the mentality that got you to operating at this level after succeeding in tech sales and as a leader. And I have a quote that I found from your LinkedIn profile that might give us some evidence as to that mindset. So I want to share it with you and get your perspective.
All right.
Let's go. This is pretty beast. I work today like I have nothing, like I'm behind and my back is against the wall. I'm fighting for my life. Doing so produces a mentality in me that makes me feel like everything is possible and the solution, the answer, the goal is coming soon. You got me fired up. Tell me your thoughts on this quote.
That's my Braveheart speech right there. Yeah. I mean, I think that's just the mindset that I've cultivated that keeps me going, that keeps me from being complacent or too satisfied. I don't want to operate from a place of I've made it, everything's cool, it's going to be easy, any of that kind of stuff. I don't want to get lazy. And so, I operate from a place of like a strong sense of urgency. Like, I've got to get this done. I got to do this. I want it done now. You don't know how much time we all have, right? And so, it's just kind of grown over the years, right? And you apply it to certain like levels of income that, you get used to and different milestones that you hit, right? I mean, it's not like I started in tech sales with that number. I remember the first time I ever made $5,000 in a month, and I thought, wow, this is like amazing, and then the next milestone was like 7,500, and then I remember hitting 10,000 or more a few times in a row, and I was like, wow, I'm actually like really doing something here. I never thought I would make six figures in my life, right? And the way that I'm kind of built and the competitor in me, if I do 100 today, I want to do 101, tomorrow, right? So I'm just trying to continue to kind of raise the bar on myself, not really competing with anybody else, just raise the bar on myself. And there's certain levels or thresholds of performance that, I get nervous about or frustrated with. And so I don't want to, I don't want to slip up. I don't want to go backwards, really.
Where did that instinct to perform or that drive to perform come from? Were you an athlete? Were there life experiences and adversity that shaped you?
Yeah. I mean, you could psychoanalyze the hell out of this, but, my grandparents came over from Italy. My grandmother's family was in the mafia. Her house got blown up when she was a kid, and so there's some of this like inherent like struggle a little bit, but also success and a little bit of coming from nothing and working your way up, probably in my genes somewhere. Both of my parents are really competitive people. My dad played college soccer in the 60s before it was like remotely popular. My mom has played tennis, basically my whole life. I don't remember her ever not playing tennis, and she was pretty good. And even now, they're older and they play pickleball and stuff like that. Cool. And they're like still competing, So I learned that, from them. And I played every sport I could think of when I was growing up, and ended up playing a couple different sports in high school and 2 sports in college for 4 years. So that drive and that competitiveness and that desire to be a part of a team and to win, I think it's always been a part of me, and I don't think it'll ever go away. I actually don't really want it to go away either,
That definitely lends itself useful to success in sales, being able to collaborate in a team, being driven. And I'm curious, are there other, qualities that are so clearly critical to succeed as an individual contributor in sales?
Yeah, there are. A willingness to learn and kind of humble yourself and be what do they call it? Like a forever student or something like that. Yeah. Is a big one. Kind of the moment you think you've got this game like licked, the game changes a little bit, and if you're not careful, it'll leave you behind.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. Over the years, I think you've had to get more and more creative. 20-something years ago when I first started, you could get away with more or less, delivering the same pitch 100 times in a row every single day through the same channel, right? You didn't have to get super creative writing emails to get people's attention, or deliver some sort of weird experience to be memorable, dropping off weird gifts at people's offices or something.
You make me think of Dale Dupree. Do you know that guy, the empty donut box stuff?
Right? Like, I never had to do that when I was in AE. So you have to lean, I think, a lot more into that creativity piece now. Good copywriting, good communicating, I think. I think you also have to know, you have to be self-aware enough to know how to put yourself in a position to succeed. So there's a lot of people who have, let's say, more of like a nurturing kind of mentality, right? In how they sell or how they approach business. Sometimes those people put themselves in like a highly transactional, sales environment where you have to be assertive, and kind of go for the close straight away, and they're really uncomfortable with that, and they struggle, and they're like, maybe I'm not good at sales or something like that. It's like, well, maybe you just didn't pick the right environment for you. You take somebody in transactional sales and you put them for the first time in a big, huge strategic enterprise sales motion. They have to slow down. They have to learn how to use some of these nurture skill sets. So, you talk about the best reps. The best reps know who they are and which environment is best for them, and they gravitate towards that kind of environment. They learn how to pick opportunities, and learn how to pick leaders to go work for, and companies that are trending the right direction. If there's a mortgage crash, you don't want to be in the mortgage industry, right? So you look at industries like AI, which is almost everywhere now in tech, but like that's probably a good place to be as opposed to some sort of on-prem old school software platform type thing. And I think, you have to have and lean on a network more than you ever had to do before, and cultivate that. You have to be a good listener. You have to have good follow-up. And you have to give a shit. You actually have to care about the prospects that you're talking to and solving their problems. You have to care about your own performance. You have to care to some degree about the company's performance, your colleagues' performance, all that kind of stuff. So you just have to actually care about the outcomes for everybody involved. I think those are the things that really set the individual contributors apart the most.
Thanks for painting a clear picture of what top sellers look like, their qualities, and particularly you mentioned self-awareness, knowing how to place yourself in the right type of selling role. There's nurturing roles, there's hunting roles, and different flavors of selling and different types of companies. So very insightful. I wanted to take us a step back to talk about the time that you found yourself in the hospital for a longer time than most people ever are in a hospital, because I know it shaped you. And just would love your to hear about that experience.
Yeah, right when I was finishing my master's degree, it was right before I turned 23 years old. I kind of came home to Chico, California, and spent some time with my family over the summer. And right before my 23rd birthday, I started getting really, really ill, really sick. I started having lots of GI problems and stomach problems and things like that, and ended up in the hospital. Couldn't figure out what was going on for a few weeks. I started losing weight like really, really quickly. I used to weigh about 195 pounds. I'm 6'2". I got down to about 140 in like 6-7 weeks. I lost tons of weight. So I started having like organ problems and all sorts of things. I couldn't get up out of bed, walk to the bathroom and back on my own, none of that stuff. They finally figured out that I had a super advanced aggressive form of ulcerative colitis, and I just couldn't shake it. None of the medicine that they wanted to give me would work for more than a few days. I'd get hopeful that this medication would work, and I'd get out of the hospital and things would go back to normal, and it just didn't work out that way. And I started having more and more problems and challenges. I started getting blockages and strictures and things like this. And then they're like, you have, cancerous growths on your colon. And I still remember them walking in saying, we have to do surgery and we have to take out your large intestine. And I'm like, what? That's like a thing that can be done, right? So I ended up I've had 9 surgeries total in my life. I have 4 major abdominal surgeries. 2 of them were emergency sort of life-saving surgeries. After the first surgery I had, I kind of sprung a leak, and all sorts of stuff was spilling inside internally that was causing, I don't know the right word anymore. I was being poisoned from the inside, basically, and just like excruciating pain. So it was a horrible, hellacious period in time. And this is way before, like, there wasn't Wi-Fi in the hospital 20-something. This is 25 years ago. There's no Netflix. There's no Facebook. There's no, iPhone. I was isolated, in the moments that I felt good enough to kind of relax. All I could do was read a book, basically. So you felt very disconnected from everything, And while I'm in the hospital, I'm on pain medication. I have like a morphine pump and every other pain med you can name I've had at some point in time. So, eventually I'm 27 years old and I'm like healed or on the path towards healing to get out of the hospital. And then I have to kick off a dope, which, if anybody knows anything about addiction at all, like, that's not fun. Luckily for me, I never really had the, like, mental side of the addiction. It was, like, all physical. I wasn't, like, fiending for pain meds. I had the mentality of, like, I don't ever want to take a fucking Advil ever again. I was, like, so done and so ready. But I still, I cold turkeyed kind of against doctor's orders. I cold turkeyed and a couple weeks of hell. But when you've been sick for 4 years, like, what's 2 weeks? That was my mindset. There's a light at the end of the tunnel for this one. So I can go through hell for 2 weeks when I know there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So yeah, that experience 100% like reshaped who I am, how I think about life, what I wanted to do with my life. Damn near everything about me was like reborn in some way, shape, or form because of that experience.
Going through 4 years of hell, like I imagine coming through that, like you can handle anything. But I don't know, what did your rebirth look like? What were some of the things that you?
Well, that is one of the things.
away?
That is one of the main things that I took away is this mindset of, okay. A lot of people say like, well, what's the worst thing that can happen, right? And you play that out, and it's actually not that bad, you know. So I thought to myself, I've probably just been through the worst possible thing that hopefully, knock on wood, will ever happen to me, right? I went through that whole thing. It's the worst thing possible I could ever go through, and it didn't beat me. So do you think I care about missing quota? Do you think I care about this guy maybe firing me? Do you think I care about, you know, not having a job for a few weeks? No. Those things no longer scared me at all. Whereas before, like most people, I probably lived in fear of some of those things. And now I'm just like, what's the worst thing that could happen? You want to start a new business? The worst thing that can happen is I fail. I lose a little bit of money. I got egg on my face. I look silly. People talk shit about me, make fun of me, whatever. Do you think I care? Coming from where I've been? And so in all of my conversations over the years, I always try to tell people, like, think about your life and all the things that have been really, really difficult that you've gone through. And now compare those to the pressure of like performing at your job. For most people, it pales in comparison to the hell that you've already been through. So I'm always trying to anchor people on, you know, you've already been through hell, man. You're still here. Is it really that hard to go prospect? Is it really that hard to close deals? Is it really that hard to find a new job? Is it really that hard to, you know, succeed in this particular role? And the answer, hopefully, that people land on is no. And when you land at that answer, it's very liberating. It's very freeing. You know, you don't operate from a place of fear anymore. You operate from a place of like, fuck it, what's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that can happen is not that bad, actually. I'm going to be okay. So you're willing to bet on yourself more. You're willing to take a few more chances, maybe that other people won't, because they're still scared or held back in some way. So yeah, that coupled with a real respect for the limited number of opportunities that we actually have in this life, and knowing that, you know, you don't always have like an indefinite amount of time. I don't think you have that perspective. Most people don't when you're 23 years old. I sure as hell didn't. You know, I was a 23-year-old two-sport athlete. I thought I was bulletproof, right? Guess what? You're not. So now I'm operating from this place of like, I'm here for a very short period of time. I don't know for how long I'll be healthy to do any of this stuff that I'm trying to do. So why would I want to waste my time doing something I don't love, that I don't enjoy at all, with people that I don't care about, that don't care about me, working for some, I grew out of all of that, you know, pretty quickly. And so, yeah, you know, I could choose to find lots of negatives and dwell on the things that are challenging and difficult for me, but instead I chose to look at my past as like a superpower, you know, and it gave me gifts that other people don't have yet, and might not ever have.
Thank you for taking a weight off of my shoulders and the audience's shoulders and instilling a sense of urgency. Like, that is so powerful.
Yeah.
So you got into tech sales afterwards, but it wasn't immediately after that whole experience, was it? Like, how did you end up finding your way into tech sales?
Yeah, well, my last surgery was around Halloween 2003, I think. And I didn't get into tech sales until like August, right around now actually, of 2004. So I sort of took off like not quite a year to heal and just get used to being a human again.
Wow.
You know? I had to relearn how to do all sorts of things. I had to try to rebuild my body and my strength and my energy to a point where I even could focus on work.
And you were a top athlete, so like I just empathize in that. Like, I was an athlete. It just must have been such a stark contrast.
I mean, it still bothers me, if I'm being honest. Like,
really?
Yeah, because I think, I still identify a lot with like physically who I was and what I was capable of before I got sick.
So you were a college athlete.
Yeah.
Like, did you have dreams of the pros?
Not really. I mean, yes and no. Like, I did a few things, minor league things here and there in soccer and stuff like that. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was in college or even in grad school, to be honest with you. But over that period of time where I was healing, I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine I played college tennis with, and he had been in tech sales for years between graduation and, I think he's the same age as me. So when he was 27, so he had like 5 years of sales experience now. And he was making like a couple $100,000 a year. And I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I'd never made any money at all up until then. Right. I never had a real job that wasn't like getting paid to play sports or coach sports on some level. And I'm like, this dude is making, $200,000-$300,000 a year doing this stuff. And he kind of said like, you should try sales. You're pretty convincing. Like, you were the captain of the team, and maybe you can get into leadership someday, right? He's like, they don't require experience. If you go to a startup, you got to start at the bottom, but you can work your way up. And so it resonated with me because the better you do, the more you get paid. The harder you work, the more you get paid. And that's very much like sport. The harder I work, the more effort I put in, the better I'm going to get. If I do good, I get paid more. If I do badly, I get cut. I understand that, right? So I got that part. Then it was really just like, how do I get brave enough to pick up the phone? How do I know what I'm supposed to say? And I had been a fairly like reserved person in my personal life up until my illness. And when I first got on the phones, like, we had no training basically. And, I'm looking at the phone and the fucking thing weighs like 1,000 pounds in my mind. And, after the first day I wanted to quit, legit wanted to quit. And I told my wife at the time, like, I don't think I want to go back. Like, this is not for me. There's no way I'm going to be any good at this. And, she said something that really like hit me upside the head. And it was like, well, what else are you going to do? Like, what's your backup plan, basically? And I'm like, shit, I don't have a backup plan, right? And that thing that I was just talking about, how what's the worst that can happen, that mentality kind of kicked in. And it's like, Scott, you're afraid to pick up the phone and people yelling at you or telling you no? Like, what are you talking about, dude? Do you know how hard it was to scrap, claw, and fight just to have this opportunity to sit here in this job, in this desk? Look around the room. All these people are just happy to be here. You're here for a different reason, And that finally kicked in, and that was how I got into tech sales. I just took a chance. I didn't know anything about it at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
You saw a guy making $200K, $300K at 27. I mean, wow, that's something. And like you said, you hadn't really made too much money before that.
Yeah, basically none.
Yeah, so, oh, man. And I just had a thought as you were talking, too. It's like, your story, if we could just borrow your story, even though we didn't live it ourselves, it's like by you sharing, it's like we now have a proof point that like things could be a lot worse. And if only like we, the audience, could take that with us and just operate with that mentality, that urgency. Like, getting rejected is nothing compared to what you went through. So again, I'm still just marinating on that story. Very powerful. And we need to know, though, I realized a little context on what was the first company you sold at. Did you get into the startup game right away?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a company called Reply.com, which I think is now called One Planet Ops. I don't know. They got bought and acquired and then changed the name, I think. But they were selling online lead generation tools to real estate agents and brokers and automotive dealers. So I'd call people up and be like, hey, Chris, are you a realtor in the east side of Austin? And you're like, yep. I'm like, sweet. I got a bunch of people looking to buy and sell houses out there on the east side. I don't have any realtors to match them up with. Are you able to take on, new customers right now?
Dude,
yeah, of course. And I'd be like, okay, well, then I'd ask them a few qualifying kind of questions, right? I mean, that's more or less the pitch that I remember from
So, you know what?
20
You
years
found
ago.
a company that had that's a damn good offer. It's like, who wouldn't want some more leads? Like,
Well, at the time, because this was like the beginning of like online leads, right? But you have to also remember what got counted as a lead then would be counted now as like a very shitty MQL.
Yeah.
So I didn't know any better at the time, but now looking back, it's like, okay, you're selling like kind of shitty web leads here a little bit. And, you know, not 10 out of 10 of these leads are going to be real. And so it took me time to understand the math behind all of this stuff and to get comfortable somewhat with selling something that wasn't going to be a win for the customer every single time. Like I had to tell to the customer, listen, you know, 2 out of 10 of these leads are going to be legit. Ignore the 8 that come through that are like Bob at, you know, blah, blah, blah.com, right? Focus on the 2 that are legit. If one of those 2 convert, you paid for the program for like 5 years, right? So you had to get yourself comfortable with that as a seller, and then you had to find clients who were comfortable with that kind of math, which was a trip. It's not a world that I was used to whatsoever. But I specifically picked this startup because they didn't require sales experience or a business degree at all. It was a transactional, fast kind of sales cycle. So in my mind, I felt like, well, I'm going to learn by doing real fast. I got to make 100-something calls a day. I'm going to be talking to people like all day long. It's like drinking from a fire hose, right? Like I can learn a lot about this real quick. And hopefully that makes me, get better. Right? That was my thought process at the time.
So fast forward today, and you've trained salespeople at Google. I remember Courtney, shout out to Courtney, that was like, Scott Leese is the man. He's awesome. You advise, startups and SaaS companies to scale their revenue and go to market, codify their sales. I'm, borrowing some language off your, I think LinkedIn, yeah. But I did my homework. And but walk us through the career choreography from selling leads and making 100 calls a day to where you're at today. I just want to kind of get a sense of the whole tapestry of your career.
Well, I ended up not being an account executive for very long. I got real good at it real quick.
So how quick, though, did you get promoted from the SDR to the account executive, and was it at this first company?
There was no such thing as SDRs when I started.
You were an account executive.
All there was back then was full cycle AEs. Okay. So I was finding my own leads. This was like, we didn't have a CRM. We didn't even have a headset.
Wait, where did you keep track of your leads? Just on a paper? Or like
a paper or a Excel file if you were super sophisticated.
Yeah.
Or in your Outlook calendar that you had color coded if you were like really organized, right? Yeah. I was only in that role for about 7 months. Okay. And then I got promoted into a sales manager role. I was in that role for, I don't know, maybe a little less than a year or so. And then I got promoted into like a senior manager role and a director level role. And before I knew it, I had like a year and a half worth of total business experience, 2 years worth of total business experience. And now I'm a VP of sales.
Wait, hold on. How did you get promoted so fast? Because a lot of the audience, they want to know, how do we get promoted from SDR to AE and from this to this?
Well, on some level, it was like a different time and a different era, where things were moving faster, money was flowing freer, startups were growing and scaling like crazy and just spending. So I don't know that you can replicate that today. And I'm certainly not trying to posit that I was like prepared or ready for all of these promotions. It just so happens that, I thought I was ready. I wanted those roles and I got those roles, right? So, I got that way. I went from AE to manager because, in my mind at least, I was breaking every single record out there, and all of the team felt like I'm the one that should be the next manager, like,
Yeah.
because I've been helping people next to me and teaching people. So I was sort of doing the role already.
Beautiful.
And I stuck my neck out there and told them, like, you should make me the next manager. Actually, in a non-professional way that I wouldn't do the same way today, but I threw my manager under the bus. I ran into the CEO and was like, hey, I got to tell you something, dude. The sales manager that you got, he doesn't help anybody. He doesn't help me at all. He's not coaching me. Like, I don't know what this guy does all day. Like, what do I got to do to get that job? And he kind of verbally, slapped me upside the head a little bit. But then he did a solid for me. He was like, after he got done yelling at me, which he was probably right to do, he was like, here's the things that, I want you to do or I'd be looking for. And I'm like, I'll see you, in a couple months after I've done all those things. So I moved into that role quick, and then my team became, number one team, and then the company just kept doing better and better and better. And I kind of ceilinged out and decided to leave, go to an earlier stage company and start as the VP of sales. Built that company up for 2.5 years, decided to leave, go find another one, built it up.
Damn,
built another one.
Let's go.
Built another one, built another one. And so I kept putting myself in these positions where these companies were super, super early. I mean, like, no customers, right? So
Wow.
all the pressure, all the smoke, like, I'm in charge of keeping the lights on, right? But I wanted that. I didn't want to be a cog in the machine. I didn't want to go someplace where I felt like, if I close $1 million deal today, I'm like a line item in a spreadsheet. That's like not appealing to me at all.
I've been at those places.
I don't know if that's how you think of it, but that's how I thought of it. Is like,
Yeah.
I go work for Adobe, I close $1 million deal, nobody notices. I go work for busing.com and I close $1 million deal, like, you're going to paint a mural with my fucking face on the wall. It's like transformational for the company, right? I wanted that kind of glory and that kind of pressure. And so I think, because of that, it allowed me to keep getting these like VP of sales roles, SVP of sales role, and keep, getting higher base, higher OTE, higher equity takes, and so forth. And then, towards the last couple VP of sales roles that I had started to grow my network on LinkedIn, really large, partly to help me with recruiting. That was the main
You've got a
reason.
great following.
Thanks. That was the main reason was to help me with recruiting and to like save money and expenses. But then I started sharing content and I started getting people messaging me saying, hey, I'd love to talk to you about this. Can I get your advice on this? And all of a sudden I'm like getting paid to do some coaching. And then I'm getting paid to do some consulting. And then a little bit of the entrepreneur side in me started to evolve. And I decided to, write a book. I wrote this book called Addicted to the Process, kind of about my health history and my journey into sales. And that book did really well and got me, a little bit of like, online notoriety or whatever. And I parlayed that into the Surf and Sales Summit, which is this micro sales conference that I've been holding in Costa Rica for the last 7 years.
Super excited to be there.
Yeah. Thanks.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And
Pura vida.
so I started doing making all these little moves, right?
Yeah.
And then before you know it, I'm making this much over here on my main job, and over here is my side hustle kind of income, and that one starts climbing, and it keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. And in 2019, I found myself, I'd been at this company, Qualia, for like 3 years. We were unicorn status. I think we were on the way to unicorn status. I don't think we were unicorn yet when I left. But I'm like, I've been here 3 years. I've vested 75% of everything. We're hundreds of people now. I'm antsy. Like, I think it's time for me to go out on my own, And there's no financial risk really because I'm already kind of earning this same amount. So I didn't start from zero when I started my own business. I started from everything I was already earning. And I used that as a jumping off point. And it'll be 5 years, October 1st, that I've been on my own. It's the longest job I've ever had.
Wow.
On my own. Yeah.
Congratulations on going all in on you, because that's just something that we all dream of, including myself. So it's good to see someone further down the path doing it, someone who is untethered. And I'm using
right.
your language because don't you have like a course, right? You help people become untethered from their W-2. And so explain or talk about this a little bit.
Yeah, I wrote this course called The Untethered Blueprint, and it just kind of tells the story and the career, the arc that I just shared in terms of how I went about my career, and talk about my philosophy of when to cut the cord and how and when do you know when to leave a particular job, and how to set these things up the right way so you can scale a little bit as you're thinking about coaching or you're thinking about consulting, and what other kind of ways you can diversify your income and so forth. And just wanted to share a little bit of what worked for me as one potential path that other people could take. And I mean, I think people, of your age and younger are thinking about this stuff way sooner, than I ever was. That's for sure.
And that's a key question, right? Is like, when is the right time? Because it could be premature, and is it really like when your income's about the same as your W-2 and starting to rise past it? Or is it could be not as much, but it's on the rise? I know there's no science, but what would your like sage wisdom be?
Well, I'm a little bit fiscally conservative / paranoid, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we started off the conversation by saying I
a little
get
under
nervous.
100K when you're...
So, for me, it was too scary to say, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to go do this thing. I'm starting off with no income whatsoever. I couldn't do that. Other people can do it. Other people can do it like as the income is climbing. For me, I'm like, I'm not doing it until my income matches. Okay. Right? And that's a safer way. That is my justification, is a safer, more sort of financially responsible sort of way. Is that the right way for everybody? No, certainly not. Is that the only way? No, certainly not. But for anybody who's looking for maybe a financially sound, conservative, stable kind of way to do it, that is a smart way. When I did this, I was married at the time. I had 2 kids. I had a couple mortgages, right? And so I'm not like 25 years old and I can go sleep on somebody's couch, and if it doesn't work, who cares? It's like, I have a lot riding on this. So I wanted to be very pragmatic about it, And so that's the method that I have taught for the last few years, but it's certainly not the only one.
You've also got some great insights on building a LinkedIn presence, and I've noticed that it can be a powerful engine to connect with people and attract opportunities. So you clearly did a great job with this. Why is building a strong LinkedIn presence important in today's world, and how can folks early in their career do so in a way that is maybe in integrity? I imagine candidly, I saw one of your posts that I loved on like, here's a good way to build your presence on LinkedIn, how to post if you're early in your career, and here's how not to do it. So that's kind of, it's almost a little bit of a leading question, but tell us about LinkedIn.
Well, there's 2 things that I'm thinking of. The first one is, you can't really get a job anymore by just blindly applying on somebody's website. So you kind of need to know somebody who can make an intro on your behalf and help you cut the proverbial line. So if you're trying to get a job at such and such company, you blindly apply on the website, you end up in the applicant tracking system, and like, God knows how many other applications are in there, and your odds of standing out are nil. Or you come to somebody, like me, let's say, and I know some people who work at this company you want to work at, and you're like, hey, Scott, I know you know people at such and such company, like, can you put a good word in for me? I'm looking at their open AE role. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I take your profile and I go to my friends at whatever this company is. I'm like, hey, I know you guys are hiring for AEs. You should talk to my friend Chris. Good dude, has done well at these other companies. I endorse him or whatever.
Boom, that's powerful.
They get that message from me, and they're like, oh, like that resume of yours now cuts the line,
Yes.
goes to the top, right? And you have way better odds of getting the interview. Doesn't mean you're going to get the job, but you've made it through the first gate, which is like getting seen and getting the interview, right? So you have to, if you're looking for a role, that's how jobs are found in tech sales right now. The second part of that is as the phone and email and all these other channels like get harder and harder to get in hold of people, the only way you're going to be able to open up opportunities is through people that you know, through your network. And networks are no longer in person. You're not really going to your church group or your softball team and like, you know, talking business and opening up opportunities from there. All of that stuff is done more online now. Micro communities, social media, right? And so the more people that you know, the more people that you help, the more people might be able to help you. So now I can go to you and say, hey, Chris, I'm trying to get a hold of this company over here. I think they have this problem. My product solves that problem. Do you know them well enough to make an intro? And so you'll be like, yeah, sure. You know, let me see what they say. So you go to the company and say, hey, my buddy Scott works at such and such place. They do X, Y, Z. I don't know if you guys have this problem or not, but if you do, you might want to take a meeting. I'm happy to make an intro. No stress, no pressure, right? And most of the time, those people say yes, because there's some inherent trust there. So now you're using your network to actually prospect and open up opportunities for yourself. And you parlay that into content creation, and some of that content you create draws people in, and they're like, well, you know, Chris makes good posts on LinkedIn. He shares a lot of valuable shit.
Like interviews with Scott Leese, the legend. I mean, shit.
You're like, oh, wow, you know, Chris has a podcast, and they start listening to your podcast. If you get enough podcast listeners, you can get sponsorship revenue. Maybe you wrote a book, and now that person who's listening to your podcast is like, I'm going to go buy Chris's book. Low ticket item, maybe $5 to $25 or something like that. But now they're buying something of yours. Now maybe you have an event like Surf and Sales. So now somebody bought your book, and now they come to your Surf and Sales event, and that's a couple $1,000s that they're spending with you. And then that person continues to grow in their career, and now they're about to be a VP of sales, and they want some coaching. And they're like, hey, Scott, can you coach me on being a VP of sales? Then they become a founder, and they're like, oh, shit, I don't know how to build and grow this like whole company, right? And now they come to you like, hey, we need some consulting help, and that's like $100,000 deal. And so you're starting off by building a network, then you're putting content out there designed to help people. Then you have these different offers that vary in size from super cheap to whatever your high ticket thing is, and you're pulling people in, and you become demand generation engine like for yourself, right? So why is LinkedIn important? I mean, it's important for those reasons right there. And people get intimidated by it because I think they focus on the like influencer part and the content creation part. And that is a lot of work, a lot of dedication and consistency, and it takes a lot of time. And so that becomes overwhelming and scary for people, and so they do nothing. When in reality, the first phase that you should focus on is just growing your network. You should just be sending connection requests out to people. For anybody that you might hire one day, or that might hire you one day, or is in an adjacent role to yours that you can learn from, just send a connection request that says, hey, Chris, looking to connect with other sellers in the Austin area. Let me know if I can ever be helpful to you. You just need to do that like 15, 20 times a day, right? Consistently. Wow. That's phase one. There's no content creation involved.
Is that what you did?
Yeah.
Early on?
Yes.
Dude, you got me inspired.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not doing that right now.
Copy pasted that message. I treated it like I treated network growth as a daily KPI for myself.
I love that.
I tracked it. So it's like, tomorrow is September 1st. Write down on a board somewhere how many connections you have on LinkedIn. And then look at it week over week, month over month, and see the growth and pay attention to the growth and set goals around the growth. Notice I've never said create content, comment on other people's posts. None of that. just build a network first. So now you start building a network and you start seeing more things. You start getting exposed to more content. You start seeing how people post, seeing how people comment. Now you can move to phase 2. And phase 2 would be just leave 5 to 10 comments on other people's posts every single day. This is where you find your voice and you find your style. And you build that muscle up and you make that a habit. You see Scott's post and you're like, you say, hey, that's a good post. I like that. I have a couple questions about it. Or, you see some Chris's post and you're like, I disagree with that a little bit. Here's why I disagree with that a little bit. And now people start seeing your name. They start seeing your little avatar picture there, and there's familiarity, right? And that familiarity is helpful for a lot of different reasons, especially if you're trying to prospect people. All of a sudden you're like, I know this name. Why do I know this name? Oh, this guy's been on my content a lot recently, right? Maybe I'm more likely to respond to an email or more likely to pick up the phone or whatever. So that's phase 2, is just commenting on other people's stuff. And only when you're ready do you need to worry about phase 3, which is creating content for yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think people need to pause and look at it in this simplistic way that I'm breaking down, of just like, okay, phase 1, I don't need to worry about phase 2 or 3 until I'm ready. Oh, now I'm in phase 2. I'm got that down into a routine. Now am I ready for phase 3?
So final question on LinkedIn. That was incredible. Masterclass. Like, I'm ready to take action, like starting Monday, seriously, on those connection requests. For someone who's a new SDR and they're like, I don't have experience, like, what can I post content-wise? Maybe first off, like as you described, you're jumping to phase 3, but I did see a post from you on the types of content that they could authentically post that might serve others that are, they're in integrity. And maybe candidly, to talk about more of the posts, that they're not pretending like they've mastered sales when they haven't. Yeah. So I would love your thoughts on that piece.
Yeah, those are the ones that are tough for me to read as somebody who's been around a long time. This guy's got 6 minutes of sales experience and he's like, dude, here's how to be the best SDR ever. It's
dude, like, I'm 10 years in and I'm humbled by your experience. I'm like, wow, I have so much to learn. So yeah, but 6 minutes?
Yeah. So I think the answer to your question is you should talk about what you're going through, the direct experiences that you're going through. So you're a brand new SDR. If you want to, start executing phase 3 sooner than what I'm talking about, fine. But talk about what you're going through. Talk about the things that you're learning. Talk about the mistakes that you're making. Talk about the failures that you're having. You can talk a little bit about the wins and some things that you learned and so forth, but to me, you have to be careful not to come off as like, I'm the best SDR ever. Here's how everybody should be an SDR. It's like, dude, you've gone through like one sales cycle ever so far in your career, and there's nuances across industry. There's nuances across segment that you go after, industry that you go after. Like, cool the jets a little bit, on telling everybody else how they should do their job. Just say, hey, I'm trying this. I've got some good results from this. Y'all might want to try it, or do you have a better way? Or you say, here's 5 things that I screwed up in my first quarter as an SDR. And you talk about all the things that you learned. Those things I think are valuable for other people who are going through something similar. The other stuff that feels inauthentic to me and kind of braggadocious, I don't think people are looking for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So Scott, I still have questions for you, like outbound channels and writing great cold email copy and messaging and your 5 fatalities that kill deals. I'm just going to check the time because this is like too damn fun. Okay. How much time do you have? I just be honest with you, and I'll adapt to that because this has already been power packed. I
probably have like 10 minutes left before I said I'd be done.
Okay. Yeah. So let's just rapid fire.
Yeah.
Outbound channels. It almost makes me think LinkedIn is the king or queen, but let's say you're either a startup, you're advising them or you're leading them, and you're kickstarting the sales engine. How do you think about like the most effective outbound channels?
Yeah, what I'm sort of telling founders right now is they have to get out in front and they have to become that demand gen engine for the business.
Okay.
They have to create brand awareness. They have to create value. They have to make people see their content, and be like, that's actually really interesting. What the heck does this guy do? What's that company do? Oh, that's interesting. I mean, we go learn about that. So they have to do that consistently. That doesn't really cost anything. It's just time and energy and effort. You can quantify that, sure, but you're not spending thousands of dollars a month on Google ads or SEO or any of that kind of stuff. I don't see people doing that. What I do see people doing is creating content, trying to grow their network, bring awareness to the brand, to the problem, to the category, whatever space that they're operating in. The next thing that I tell people is founders have historically got their first deals from their investors. So what I'm telling everybody is just extrapolate out that same exact process for your first million. So you can juice going from $0 to $1 million just by signing up affiliates and referral partners. So let's say you start a software business today. What I would tell you to do is start creating content, get that demand gen engine going for yourself. And then if I'm you, I go find 100 versions of Scott Leese and say, hey, I would love if you joined us as a referral partner. I'd like to send, 50 accounts your way every 3 or 4 weeks. All you have to do is take a look at those accounts, see if you know anybody good enough to make an intro. If you do, and you make an intro and I end up closing that deal, we'll pay you 10% or 20% of first year's ARR. You sign up 100 versions of me and you run that motion consistently, your pipeline grows beyond the point where you can even handle it as one person. So think about it. I have 114,000 plus followers on LinkedIn. Okay. So when people send me 50 accounts to take a look at, provided it's, in a segment that I actually have a network in, if you ask me to know 1 million lawyers, I don't. But if you're asking me tech founders, VPs of sales, stuff like that, and so if that's who you're selling to, I can help. So you send me this list of 50, I probably know 3 or 4, let's say, right? 3 or 4, let's say I send 4 kind of meeting intro messages to these people and say, hey, my buddy Chris wants to talk to you. Probably 80% of them say yes. So let's say you get 3 meetings off of me. Your average contract value is, I don't know, $50K, let's say. Well, I just opened up $150K of pipeline for you in one shot. Now, if you did that with 99 other versions of me, I'm not very good at math, but that's $150K of pipeline times 100 people that are referral partners.
Is that 1.5 million?
I think it's more than that.
Oh, shit. Well, it's a lot. It's over $1 million.
It's 10.5 million if I'm doing my math right. So all of a sudden you have a $10 million pipeline. Now, in the very beginning, you don't know your close rates and conversion percentages and all that stuff. But I have to think to myself, if I tee you up with 10 appointments, you should at least be able to close 1 out of 10. So if I've juiced you to a $10.5 million pipeline, napkin math would tell me that $1 million of that you should be able to close. And now you've just gotten to $1 million in ARR without hiring a single account executive, without spending any money in marketing whatsoever. You've got brand awareness everywhere. And if you are smart, every month you send a new list of 50 to all these referral partners. So when you're asking me the question, how should founders begin or how should founding AEs even operate? What's the first channel to pay attention to? That's the first channel that I would tell people to pay attention to right now. Because what's the alternative? The alternative is to go out into the universe, make 100 cold calls a day. Well, people don't pick up the phone the way that they used to. So you're not going to get the conversion rates on the phone that I got 20-something years ago.
You might not have the right data, too, I noticed.
There's also that. You go buy data from Zoom Info or Seamless or whatever, and 50% of the data is bad all the time.
You're not getting through to actual phone numbers. So anyways, to your point.
So you burn a lot of energy and cycles and get very frustrated with the phone. Can you get to a $10.5 million pipeline as fast by cold calling people? I personally don't think so. What about email? Everybody and their mothers has ruined email by sending hundreds, if not thousands of emails out to people via their spam cannon tools and all this kind of shit.
Yes.
To the point where when you get an email now, you're on the defensive, or you've got filters in place that are sending it to spam or to some non-prioritized folder or whatever, right? And you're talking about feeling good about yourself if you get a 1 or 2% response rate to email. That doesn't feel very optimized to me. I'm not saying don't ever do it, but I'm saying that's not where I'm placing my bet if I'm a founding AE or I'm a founder and I need to get to $1 million of ARR fast. LinkedIn is a little better, if you do it the right way, but it's a long game. You don't just DM 100 people and say, hey, you got time on your calendar, right? It's a slower kind of game, yeah. More of a relationship building, awareness type of a game.
Yeah.
So you should spend time there, but is that the best place? I don't think so. So in the last couple of years, I've seen this continue to evolve this way, and I'm teaching all my clients. I run this motion with a bunch of different vendors and partners. I've got a syndicate of people underneath me that I kind of say, hey, this vendor wants to run this referral program. Are you guys comfortable with their product? Do you want them to reach out to you and sign you? So I've got a whole syndicate of people. So now I have a new client who comes to me and they're like, talk to me about this referral play. And I'm like, well, here's how we do it. Let's start with me. Once I show you how it works, then we can go to my syndicate and you can sign up 100 other people who run this play if you want, and off you go. So that's where I would be placing my bet.
Okay.
And I am placing my bet.
That's powerful. That's the ultimate shortcut to getting more meetings in pipeline. And I found in my own experience working at a services company, a cloud services company, most of my great opportunities have come through referrals, through like ecosystem partners or relationships. So
but isn't it funny how lousy a job we've done of finding a way to scale referrals over the last 10 years?
Yeah.
I think that era is here now upon us, where we figure out how do we scale these things that we know are less painful for both the seller and the buyer. They close at a faster rate. They have a higher average contract value. They're stickier customers who complain and create a lot less, who complain less and create a lot less support tickets. This is the way we move forward.
So work with me here. I wanted to ask you about good messaging, the 5 fatalities, and surf and sales. And I'm going to surf and sales. I can't wait and want to encourage the audience to go. And that's linked in the description of this video. And so how do we don't have much time. So do you want to pick like one of those?
Well, let's talk about the messaging then.
Okay. Versus the fatalities. Yeah. I mean, the fatalities is cool. I'll just tell the audience to check them out. You've made some badass videos,
Maybe drop a link to one of the videos. We tried to create some content last year, like a little miniature sales movie using AI and stuff like that.
I saw just real quick, and then we'll go to the messaging. I saw the one on timing, how that kills deals. Yeah. Just anything you want to riff on real quick.
Well, you show up to talk to somebody and it's not the right time for some reason, you've potentially blown your chance. You let too long go by in between meetings. Time kills all deals.
Yep.
That's a problem. So how do we condense the sales cycle? So it's a combination of like, what can we do to expedite getting to decisions? And how do we make sure that we're approaching somebody at the right time? Like the wrong time would be if I came to you the day after you spent $1 million on a different piece of software. I screwed that up somehow. I didn't get in there in time. So it's just thinking about time in all of these kinds of ways.
Yes.
Get in front of the right people at the right time with the right messaging, and how do I condense that sales cycle on down?
So that's just a great teaser. The 5 fatalities, one of them is time. It can kill deals. So for the other 4, the audience can look at the videos linked in the description. Yeah. Okay, messaging and surf and sales, and we'll call it an episode.
I mean, messaging-wise, you have to just stand out. So you can't have a subject line that's like, I don't know, efficiency or like, use AI to scale. Like every subject line looks the same like that. So I think you have to get really creative, sometimes goofy, sometimes silly, call something out that you've seen, them talk about or write about or whatever. Like if you sent me an email and the subject line was 5 fatalities, I would be like, that's different. What the heck does that mean?
What about Casa Azules or your
there
tequila?
You go. Same thing. Right? Same thing. Like tequila and sales, I'd be like, oh,
because just for context for the audience, you're a fan of.
Yeah, I'm a tequila aficionado / snob.
In our last live stream podcast, you had mentioned that. So yeah.
The next time we do the show, we should just drink tequila during the show, and then we might go off the rails, but it might be entertaining.
It's like an Elon Musk-esque move. Our own version.
Yeah.
Scott Leese, you're going to go viral.
Oh, man. And then you get into the body of the message. Most people write way too much.
I'm guilty.
There's too much. Guilty. Let me see if I can give you a good example of why this is like a bad idea. So many people, I don't know the numbers, but so many people that I know and talk to, and myself included, the first place that I look at email all the time, or LinkedIn DMs for that matter, is on my phone. Now, you don't wear glasses, I don't wear glasses, so let's presume we both have good eyesight. So we can see like a lot of words, a lot of characters. We can read most of the message. By contrast, my dad has terrible vision. My son has terrible vision. So think about people who don't have great eyesight. What do? They make the font bigger on their phone. The bigger the font gets on your phone, the less words you can see. So now you're making somebody scroll to the right to read a whole sentence a few times. They've got to scroll back to the left to get to the beginning of the next stanza or paragraph. You see where I'm going? Now they're scrolling up and down.
Talk about empathy. I've never had this access to this empathy. I never thought about that myself.
Well, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the recipient and the audience member. So if I'm writing a fucking War and Peace novel of an email and somebody with bad eyesight is looking at it on their phone, they are not going to take the time to scroll back and forth a million times to read what I have to say. So you want your email to be short, punchy, direct to the point, calling out a pain of some sort, adding some type of like educational element or value added type of thing. You got to play the long game a little bit. All these things, like my calendar link is right here. Grab time if you want to talk. Like C-level people don't respond to that kind of stuff. Not at the same rate that they used to.
Yeah.
Right? So your point of an email is not to book a meeting. It's actually to generate awareness. It's to generate awareness of you and your company and maybe highlight what the problem is that you guys solve.
Yes.
And then hopefully that kicks off the beginning of a relationship. And over time, then you get to a place where like you can maybe more directly say, hey man, if you ever want to talk about this stuff and try to fix it, this is what I do. And by that point in time, the person's like, yeah, all right, because I know you a little bit and you've provided some help to me along the way, right? So the only other thing I'd say about email is, you're trying to aim for relevance, trying to aim for personalization. You're trying to hit the right person at the right time with the right problem and the right pain. Not sending 500 emails a week or day and spraying and praying, that type of thing. So it's much more like you're writing one-to-one as opposed to writing one-to-many in your voice.
I am so excited for Surf and Sales in Costa Rica coming up later in the year. We get to spend time with you. We get to learn about sales, and I'm sure it's just going to be inspiring. And we get to surf. I don't know how to surf, really. I think
90% of people who come have never surfed before.
Right?
So you'll be fine.
But I'll tell you this real quick. The first time I went to Costa Rica, and the only other time was when I was in middle school. And it was because of my mom. She was like, Chris, you're transitioning to a private high school, and their Spanish program's really advanced, and you need to be ready. So we're going to get you in a class. And I think it's partly mom just wanted a fun trip. And I went there, and the first day when I'm living with a host family, I end up just feeling so shocked by the culture. And I tried to talk to a girl that was my age, and she laughed at me when I tried to speak Spanish. And I called my dad, and I said, this is the worst day of my life ever. I was crying. And then it turned into the greatest experience ever. So that was the last time I was in Costa Rica. Wow. And now I'm 31 years old. So I was actually
20 years ago.
Yeah, so I cannot wait. Yeah. But a little personal anecdote. Tell us about Surf and Sales.
Yeah, the whole idea is to be the opposite of one of these big, huge conferences that are so common in the industry. We take 20 people a couple times a year down to Playa Grande, Costa Rica, and do like a half day of content on sales, on leadership, on entrepreneurship, whatever, all sorts of different business related subjects.
Cool.
And then the second half of the day, you know, we give people surf lessons. We hire local instructors. We have some host families there that we've connected with who cook us like homemade delicious meals, and we have some drinks if that's your thing, and people go for walks on the beach and check out the sea turtles, and we go zip lining. We do all this
zip lining's fun.
We do all this kind of fun stuff, and the idea is to combine an educational networking environment with some recreational vacation downtime, you know, and kind of reward yourself for a job well done this year. And rather than just having people go, you know, you send your President's Club to Mexico and they just go get wasted for 72 hours straight. And then they come home tired and they didn't learn anything. Instead, people are opting to sort of hedge their bet a little bit and say, you know what, you're my number one producer this year. I'm going to send you to Costa Rica to surf and sales. You're going to learn some stuff, but you're also going to have some fun. And I think that's a little bit better investment. And, you know, we've sold them out for 7 years in a row. I got 5 tickets left for this year's event still in November. So we'll see if we can keep the streak alive. But I'm pretty sure that we will. But it's a lot of fun, and so many people who've come through Surf and Sales have said it's like a transformational experience for them. So it's been really rewarding as well.
Get to reward yourself with new friendships, connections, learning, and dare I say, like as you described, transformation. Because I've gone to, you know, different retreats. I went to one in New Mexico through a different program, and it was transformational. But knowing that you're at the helm, you're leading it, just knowing you and spending time with you, I'm so excited. So to the audience, if you want to hang out with Scott and me, I'll see you in, what's the date in November?
November 15th to 19th.
Cool.
Costa Rica. That's the one that's available. 5 tickets left. So it's Surf and Sales, SALES.com.
Linked in the description of the video. I haven't looked at the camera on the side today, but what's up, guys? I didn't do my typical intro spiel. I just wanted to dive into the meat and potatoes, man. And so any final words of encouragement to our audience? Otherwise, I will sign us off.
I don't know, final words. I mean, don't be afraid to evolve, I guess is the final words. Some people who have been in sales for a while don't want to learn new skills, don't want to try different things, and maybe you are struggling, and if not struggling, you are going to end up struggling at some point in time. Your tactics and your techniques have to evolve. You have to be willing to change. And so maybe that's my kind of final parting shot, considering everything that we've talked about. You know.
What an amazing conversation. Thank you for generously sharing your insight and inspiration. And to the audience, may we always evolve to your success in tech sales and in life. Happy selling and happy living. And I usually say we'll see you at the next one, but I'll say we'll see you at Surf and Sales in November. Nice. At least 5 of you.
All right.
Cheers. Thanks so much.
Yep.
Yeah.